Mbadi Gambian kolu wato sita pour banku dingolu fanan yela foroya yitandi yela kamotimmandi yela waso yitandi amammo kumpa Halifa Sallah anin political party o PDOIS ilota banko e damento birin Gambia nyanta ka mala damento wala wulta kalo ka jube ka katakulu beke foka dimba nyinta ka be dubeñ lunga fela sita nan kota ke ñin November karo tili sabo ning ala sonta Halifa nyanta ka bo Churchillstown PDOIS la biroto kata election house IEC pour kata nomination wala je kallo ka kaytol di ka ke PDOIS la presidential candidate mbal be kumandi la je al be bunya be je al sifutana mo fele mi ya lonko ayala waso yitandi ayala kallanke ya yitandi aya yitandi ko fana londo babulle pour kanyim banko samano nyaato oto kumantu je silang Gambia dingolu altamuru altasubu.
Hello and welcome to this interview here that the Fatu Network is having with Honorable Halifa Sallah. We are very honored to have you here with us today. I know you've been out of the media a little bit a while back. We did not hear from you, and we're happy to that you're granting us this interview. But first, we would like you to greet our viewers who are viewing from all over the world.
Well, thank you for the invitation. That is the role of the media. I'm sure that the general public would want to hear something from somebody who is seeking to get the mandate of a people. So I am quite ready to address any issue that they may be of interest.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We will start first with the preparations. Elections is for the 4th of December, which is very close now. It's almost here. And I've seen campaigns around and a lot of media attention on politicians. How far? What is PDOIS doing right now?
We are engaged in community sensitization. We have started it quite a long time ago because of the approach we are taking to the politics of the country. We felt that rather than drawing people to you by calling for rallies, it is better to go to the people and see how they receive you. And we have been checking the reception mood of the Gambian population. And I must say that we are quite overwhelmed by that appreciation. And that's precisely what we are intensifying, community sensitization.
Yes, we've seen the one that you had in Gambisara, where you travel with Jaha and other members of your team. Was that the biggest? Because after that, I'm not sure you've gone to another one that was as big as the meeting in Gambisara. We've seen videos and photos of it.
Well, I don't think it was the issue of a large gathering of people. The Gambisara program was not meant to build up a campaign trail. It was meant to showcase a woman who has demonstrated interest in participating to determine the destiny of her homeland. And when she showed interest for quite a long period, we built up a relationship. And eventually, when it became clear that she was serious in participating fully in politics, we decided that we will accompany her to her home village so that we can check how the people respond to her, because that is the starting point. If the people in your very village are not interested in your politics, then one will doubt whether the nation will be interested. So it was more about her than about Doi and the campaign trail. And the objective was to link her to the community and indicate to them that she has finally made a decision to stand and be counted. That was the objective, and that is why it took the form that it did. But our actual program in the campaign trail is not designed to really call for big meetings. We spend 15 minutes, 20 minutes moving from place to place and eventually gather somewhere to speak to them. So this is really the approach. So in a day I could go to 15, 20 places where I communicate a small message, a short message to the population.
Well, you talked about that. You just said about the crowd, but we know that now in the Gambia, politics is measured by crowd. Because you've seen on social media, I'm sure a lot of people call it crowd competition, that whoever has the biggest crowd would win. Do you think this is the reality in politics?
Of course it is not. Let's go back. I won elections in 2002. That's the time I became a National Assembly member. And what was interesting, I did not hold a single rally. I went to street corners and communicated a message. I remember somebody from Germany met me in a street corner, very few people around, and he said when he approached my meeting, he said, well, this is what they've been saying about this guy. What type of human being is this? Who is he speaking to? And he did not know that I was speaking to the people in their homes because I wanted to move to 10, 15, 20 places to communicate to people right there in their homes. But he said he sat down and listened to the message. At the end of the day, he said, something must be wrong with the Gambian people. This message that I hear. And he came and pat me on the back and said, please just continue. Now, when I went for nomination, I went with 3, because we did only 3 people to nominate you. I went with 3 people.
You did not
and
go with the crowd?
The person who was my opponent went with the paraphernalia of a large crowd, and they were saying, well, this guy does not have Yai Compin. How can this person win an election? And of course, he was standing for the APRC, and he was a former chairman of a deputy chairman of a council. He had all the support cloud, but at the end of the day, I won the election.
Wow.
So essentially, election is not about big crowd, and I think in 2017, I did not hold a single rally. I went house to house and spoke to the people and gave them my message, and I think I had about 70% of the vote. So crowd really does not mean much to me. It's message that gets to the people and message that is accepted by the people that really matters. And if you really depend on the crowd, obviously you got the lesson of 2016.
Yeah, and we've seen Guinea,
2016, Jammeh had all the crowd in the world, and nobody expected the coalition 2016 to win an election. And clearly, if you compare Jammeh's capacity to draw crowd, if you relied entirely on that, you will say that the country will never change. And because when he moved with young people, with women everywhere, and young people running in front of his vehicle. So, yes, crowd matters. Let's not dismiss it, but it's not the decisive issue.
Yeah, and we've seen Guinea with the Selou Dillal, and also with the American elections. Trump actually was having a huge crowd. And at some point I was worried for Biden, and he ended up winning. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But the PDOIS method too, I want us to talk about that. I see a lot of people. I was in the car with this guy who's a welder man, and he was going to fix something for me at home. And we had a conversation in the car, and he said, Mande Halifa Lai Sanil. And then I asked him, Halifa Ngai Sanil. He said, Mande mom la buga te binyep dawe won gena dekabi mom kena mo talk. He said he actually wanted to run away and leave the country, but because of you coming on TV all the time saying, don't worry about it, everything is fine, we're fine, he decided to stay. So you see a lot of people who like Halifa and the PDOIS. But when it comes to the elections, it's a different matter. I was talking to somebody today, and he said it's because of the method that PDOIS use, like no drumming, which I see now you've done a little bit, and the crowd issue. Do you think you're using the wrong method?
Well, I believe that that is really a misconception of what DOI had done over the years. Clearly, if you follow our politics, we were the first to start introducing songs of liberation. And you see the women will sing and they will dance, so it's not true that DOI has not been using that. It's just that the drums were meant for a different purpose, the songs for a different purpose. They educated people to understand that they were sovereign human beings who should not be subjected to any form of inducement or intimidation. I know you must have done a little bit of research to see that, in fact, we started politics by having theater during the First Republic. The whole issue of retrenchment had been demonstrated in theater form in such a way that we were really mobilizing people. Fatu, the reality is that DOI must be seen in phases. 1987 to 1992, it was a party growing with a vast support base among the young people, especially teachers in the provinces, because we were producing a newspaper and educating the people to know what was happening in the country at a time when the country was very sterile politically. And we had a really large youth support base. In 1994, the coup d'etat came, and we lost that youth support base because of their feeling that a revolution had taken place and we were offered ministerial posts and we did not accept. These intellectuals, they are not really serious about leading a country. So we had a different situation as we moved to the 1996 presidential elections. Clearly, the country was divided into two power bases. PPP, that was already the ruling party, with YI companies everywhere, with support base, with money, and an APRC that had come with also money and the YI company and support base. So by embracing the UDP, PPP really gave UDP a clout. And this is what people don't like to analyze, that really what happened was a two-pillar power base was established by the old ruling party and a new ruling party supporting different sides of the political spectrum and therefore creating a two-tier political system. And here DOI had to penetrate to be able to become relevant within that political system. And of course by 2001, you could see what happened, that the UDP finally decided that it will boycott any future elections, and it boycotted the elections in 2002, and that created a vacuum. And of course DOI could have really exploited that at that time, because we won, CDA won in Wuli, I won in Serekunda in 2002, and we could have continued to build up a political base. And that's what people should learn, that our fundamental objective was not to build DOI, but we still felt that the sovereignty of the people had to be consolidated. And that's why when we were approached that we should work towards building a coalition, we accepted that we will really work to coordinate to build a coalition. That's what gave rise to the NAD coalition. UDP had boycotted election. How would UDP have come back to participate in Gambian election if we did not create NAD, if they did not participate in NAD, and NAD became a coalition? We forgot about political parties. And you must bear in mind, if you follow the historical trajectory, that from 2005, when NAD was created, until 2016, DOI had not participated in presidential election as DOI. We participated as NAD in 2005. We decided to form the United Front in 2011, and the United Front had 11% of the votes to the UDP 17%, only 6% difference. And therefore, in 2016, we decided to form Coalition 2016. So people tend to dissociate DOI from that popular base in politics, when in reality, NAD, we coordinated and won about 4 by-election out of 6. a united front, we coordinated. It had 11% of the votes. In 2016, nobody can exclude us from the heart of building coalition 2016, and we changed the country. So we must say that DOI sacrificed party interests for the national interest up to 2016. That must be taken into account in really examining Gambian politics. I do not believe that it is a reality that DOI did not have popular support and popular sentiments, because you can see, how Sidia continued to win in Wulli, how Serakunda, if I really decided to even involve in other types of politics, I think we could really cement our political base in getting a lot of votes. But the problem that we saw was that for 52 years before 2016, opposition parties will have a lot of votes, but they will never be able to defeat the incumbent because of patronage, because of intimidation. So we decided that we must work towards changing the Gambia, at least for once, for the ballot to have a meaning, to effect a change through the ballot box. That became our primary objective, and we attained that in 2016.
Well, I know that PDOIS was the first to talk about forming a coalition. I remember I had an interview with Sydney at that time. So I wanted to ask, I know about Dr. Sisa when we come to that, but for 2021, did the PDOIS come up with the idea like you did in 2016?
Absolutely.
All on the parties to form a coalition?
Absolutely not. No. Because the time has changed. And when we gauged 2016, what we wanted and we fought for was to really put an end to self-perpetuating rule for people in 2016. Yes. That is why we agreed to a coalition agenda of 3 years, so that during the 3 years, we'll work together to change the constitution, the institutions of the state, change the mindset of the Gambian people, so that what we achieved in 2016 would actually be consolidated in the 3 years thereafter. Because to us, what we achieved was, for the first time, 52 years of our existence, the ballot could change a head of state. And the people had told us that was inconceivable. It will never happen. But it happened. And therefore, no Gambian thereafter should ever say again that they don't have the power to change their manner of government. So that was the objective. But you've seen how it ended. And therefore, we are convinced. People, in fact, wanted to point accusing fingers at us and said, well, you brought us into this mess. You brought the change, but where is the change? They keep on asking for the change. We said, yes, the change is there. A revolution had taken place. The revolution is that 52 years you had never been able to change a government through the ballot box. It only changed through the bullet in 1994. But now it had changed through the ballot box. That is the revolution. You are now convinced that your voice, your say, your power has meaning. What is left now is what type of government must emerge after that change. What type of system are you going to build after that change? Is it just simply reforms that never really eradicates your poverty and your suffering, eradicate injustice, eradicate ignorance? So if that is the case, then change must have different forms. So for us, we defined the change in 2016 as regime change. It's a change of a personality changing, and of course you can you can have reforms of different sorts. Now the media is open, many things, you can have many collateral out of it, but essentially the poverty of the people remain. So we in 2021 became convinced that we must move towards system change. And I must remind you, in 2011, I organized people so that we can have a convention. And then when we had the convention, I decided to declare my non-participation as a candidate during that selection process. And that is integrity. If you bring people together, they become suspicious that you are bringing them together so that you can use them. Yes. And therefore, when I did that, I was willing to really sit back and not participate, just to show the people that I was not really interested in power, but that we were interested in empowering the people to be able to effect change. 2016 also, I did pioneer the whole process. And when this process reached its final phase, and we had the convention, I could not complain about how the election was conducted. Once the results came, I had to accept the result as they were. And therefore, that's integrity. Now, in 2021, we've seen the need for system change. I am an active participant, and therefore, the objective here is to work with people who are interested in system change. We are no longer interested in calling a group of people and say that let us go through a form of selection and election where whoever is selected is okay, because this is what happened in 2016, and people start blaming us for the outcome. So if you are going to determine the outcome, then you must also manage the process. And therefore, the process that we want to be involved in is a process we know that the people who want to participate are people who are interested in system change. Okay. We have declared that.
Okay, well, if you're just joining us, this is an interview with Honorable Halifa Sallah. He is the party leader for PDOIS and the presidential candidate. I know a lot of people are like, oh, he should take the mask off, but you know we're in COVID time, and it's very it's advisable to have the mask on, you know, to stop COVID when you are outside of your house. So I think you all should understand that, because there's a lot of comments here saying...
Yes, they should bear in mind that I also was seriously infected with COVID.
I heard about that.
And for 2 months, I was completely devastated. So
I heard it was really...
maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks, maybe. But at this moment, I think they should understand that I should secure my health to the fullest.
You wear the mask every day like this?
Yes, everywhere, in public gathering. Only take it off at home.
Okay. Well, so critics would say Halifa Sallah would not want to be part of any coalition. Is this what it is?
Well, I believe that that is the picture that some people had tried to paint, in fact, very recently. But I think that picture has absolutely failed. Failed in the sense that the history does not indicate that. The history indicates that we very much organized the United Front in 2011, and I decided not to participate at all. And in 2016, I was the PDOIS candidate. Yes. And obviously, when we came to selection process, we agreed to go to the vote, and then we accepted the decision. I eventually became President Barrow's spokesperson and worked very hard to ensure that he is sitting where he is sitting. So history has already proven that the objective is not to lead by any means. But in 2021, I have reached the pinnacle of my participation in Gambian politics. And my party gave me a mandate, and I have said that yes, I am willing to be a one-term president of the Gambia. And that one-term president would require for us to bring about system change. Now, since we want to bring about system change, we are saying we are willing to sit with anybody who is actually interested in effecting that system change. We'll discuss about the system that we want to put out and the system that we want to put in place. And then that can be the basis of a negotiation, you know, of what to do next. So essentially at this stage, my voice is very clear that I am given a mandate and I am willing to accommodate anybody who believes that we need system change in the Gambia. That is the reality.
So now, is it because of what happened in, I understand what you said now, but I'm saying When you think about coalitions, do you have this fear of what happened in 2016? Because we were all here. By now, every Gambian knew what happened. You know, how everything was just, hijacked and it all changed. Is that, do you sometimes fear that if you join a coalition, the same thing could happen again?
I think people who fear are people who see the nation as a cake to be shared. That's not my impression of politics.
Sense. Yes.
I'm not really interested in sharing a cake. That's why I did not take any ministerial post, because I'm not looking for a personal benefit. I am saying I will not
bring about that change. Your input will be important, and for you to be part of that change, you will have to be in the system.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that, well, not in the system, but the type of system. I'll be in a system that will affect system change. System that affects a change of the system itself.
Get this again. So you would be part of a system that would
transform the whole life of the population.
You wouldn't know that until you get it.
No. You can't know by the program that you're going to put in place. At this moment, I know exactly how Gambia should be transformed to eradicate poverty.
Now, I was saying with the
2016, you mean?
Like you wouldn't know. You said you didn't take a ministerial position. I'm saying you should have taken it, and that way you would be inside.
No, you will know. You will know very clearly. You know, many of you don't know what happened. What I suggested to President Barrow before, on the 25th of December 2016, before he assumed office, that we should establish an agency for sustainable socio-economic development. I was willing to head that. We will have 7 experts that will look at all aspects of the Gambian society. And then we'll create an expert bank where all those people who want to contribute to the development of the Gambia will be mobilized, and will create a database. We even got to the point where we hired the consultant that will be able to create the database. We tried it, and many people started sending their curriculum vitae. So everything was there in place. What happened to that? You know, those are issues that are not necessary for me to raise, because President Barrow was elected, and under the Constitution, he became the executive of this land. So therefore, he is the one who mattered at that material time. So what I looked at is the trajectory of what I saw. And the trajectory proved to me that what was best was for me to be in the National Assembly, where I will continue to examine the governance environment and guide it from that process. But the objective was not to be a part of that cabinet, because I will be accountable. Cabinet means collective responsibility. And looking at the cabinet and the formation of that cabinet, it was not formed by looking at people who, on the basis of merit, were capable of running institutions. It was more on a political platform, partisan platform, than anything else. So therefore, from the very beginning, and also subsequently, what we thought we should do to ensure that the coalition will have impact on the presidency in guiding the processes, well, it was all clear that the country was moving towards an executive presidency, and that nobody should interfere with how he intended to govern the country. That was very clear.
Yes, and you're doing great at the National Assembly, but if the National Assembly is kind of divided, I'm not saying like arguing and stuff, but you have different parties there. And we had the draft constitution was in there, and you know, nobody was able, it didn't make it. So all of that too, I know you wanted to make a difference, but I'm saying, is it working for you?
Of course,
we made it.
Of course, we made a difference. The National Assembly has changed. People don't know how the National Assembly works. We have all these committees, we have these ministers. The ministers know how the National Assembly works. Ministers know that the National Assembly is more powerful than the post of minister, because we bring them to the National Assembly. They have to be held accountable for so many things. We have passed many bills together, scrutinized them together. So in essence, yes, you can have some of the key things not done, such as passing of a constitution. That is a reality. But I must say that we have created an architecture at the National Assembly which has really prepared the ground for the future. If any other National Assembly members come in, they now realize the power of the National Assembly. It's no longer as it were during the olden days. This is a very powerful, assertive National Assembly, which is phenomenally changing quite a lot of things.
So
but of course, it has to.
Assembly member if you win the elections in December.
Well, I'll continue to be national. The president assumes office. Yeah. So it means that once you assume office, of course, you become the president, and you cannot be in the National Assembly.
Before January 19th.
Yes, you continue to be a National Assembly member.
So if you're president, you will be at the second State House, and then you'll also be going to the National Assembly.
Obviously, because I have still a lot of work to do in the National Assembly. I will do all the unfinished business in the National Assembly. A lot of reports to write, so I will definitely be doing that.
Okay. So to the critics who would say it is very difficult to work with Halifa, he always wants it his way, or no, nothing. He wouldn't participate, or he wouldn't want to be part of that. Do you think they're being fair to you?
Well, that's not the experience of my National Assembly colleagues. I think in all the committees I find myself, I believe that you go to them and interview them and say, do you want this person to be the chairperson of your committees? I believe that their answer would be, yes, we do. I was also the spokesperson of President Barrow. Go to President Barrow and interview him and ask him, is it difficult to work with Halifa? I don't think he will actually say that. He will say that, well, this is a very big coalition. Well, go to those who chaired the building of the coalition and ask them whether this person was very difficult to work with. I think they will feel that he provides answers to challenges at all times. So my experience in life is that I'm a problem solver, and clearly people who work with me get very much motivated because they learn new things, and I learn from them, and we show them new ways of working as a collective, as a team. So clearly that has been the war towards collapse. I worked with people who belong to the old system. The Secretary General, President Barrow was in Dakar.
Yes, he was.
How did the civil service continue to function? How did the security apparatus continue to function? So it was the capacity to be able to work with the security chiefs, guiding them. We prepared the whole ground, and the old Secretary General, who was Jammeh's Secretary General, who acknowledged that change has come and now had to devote his life to the new dispensation. So I worked with all these people, galvanized them. We prepared the ground where President Barrow will stay when he comes back. So there were no looting, nothing happened in terms of debts, etc. So you had a very orderly society.
Said that there was a period where nobody was in charge.
Well,
and that guns were smuggled
well,
out of the emirate. That was also said. I don't know if you heard about that.
well, what I'm emphasizing is whatever isolated incident may have happened,
Yeah.
the reality is that this state continued to be stable. And those who manage the security apparatus continue to work as a team. Those who manage the civil service continue to work as a team until we could get President Barrow back to preside over an administration that really posed no difficulty, no challenge for him to administer. So in actual fact, that is a demonstration of whether I have the capacity to run a state and whether I can engage in teamwork or not.
Yes, and definitely, yeah, we all saw that. And that was what the gentleman was telling me in the car. That is the reason why he said he would vote Sallah. So is this going to be your last taking part in the election as the presidential candidate of PDOIS?
Not only presidential candidate, National Assembly, or any form of election. That really, I think I've done the service that I believe I am capable of giving to my nation, and I think I've done so with honesty and sincerity, with self-abnegation, and I do not want anything to blemish that. So my last venture is to seek the mandate of the people in order to manage the affairs at the highest level of the state. But should that fail, well, it means that I've done my part. I will now move into academia, write the books that I have long been wishing to write, and speak to people that may wish to listen to me, and then leave that for others to continue. That is really my aspiration.
So when we talk about coalition, a lot of people would say PDOIS and Halifa Sallah would never be in a coalition with UDP. If UDP comes to you, because there is rumor out there that they are talking to BB Dabo and the National Unity Party to form a coalition. For instance, if they contact you and UDP wants a coalition with PDOIS, is that something that's workable?
I don't know why people say what they are saying. We have seen two phases of Gambian politics. First phase, where you have self-perpetuating rule, 30 years, 22 years, and it was evident that a single party could not change that. And 2005, we participated in NAD, and UDP was part of NAD. In 2011, we participated in the United Front. NRP was part of the United Front. In 2016, we participated in Coalition 2016. UDP, NRP, and all these parties were part of that. So why do people continue to have a misconception of what DOI will do and what DOI will not do? At the time that we belonged to the same camp with these parties and did not mind who was selected to be a flag bearer, we were up to ensure that we have a change through the ballot box for the first time in Gambian history. We believe that would be necessary in order to empower the Gambian people, to know that power belongs to them, and to know that they can change and put people in office. That history, that chapter is concluded. The next chapter is I don't want to be associated with being part of any government that will perpetuate the poverty of our people. That is impossible. I will not.
Do you know that in advance?
Yes, by the programs. Let me give you an example.
Like the manifestos when you read their
well, the programs, you can see at this moment, for 56 years, go to any village, it's the same problem. No electricity, no water supply, bad roads, no nursery schools. People are suffering. They cannot even get fences for their gardens or water for their gardens. How do they get? So essentially we are saying, and we have been saying that, and that's what we call system change, that the reason why that is happening is the system of government. Because you know that in your own house, if you do not have that fish money, your house will collapse. You need a financial base to run a home. Where is the financial base to run a village? The VDCs are there, but there's no village treasury. And that's what we are saying, that you should not be sending people's rates, duties, licenses, whatever they're paying for their cows, etc., to the area council. It should be in the village treasury. And the VDCs annually will sit with the villagers and have their priority projects and say that, well, we want to provide borehole for the village women garden and fence it and provide them with seed fertilizer farming implements. That is a project. We want solar panel so that the whole village will be given electricity. That is a project. We want to build the roads. We want to build nursery school. We want to engage in village planning so that we know exactly where we put what DOI is talking about. That with the village treasury, you'll be able to carry out some of the projects. What then should be the money that you put in the area councils? We are saying our sovereign national wealth, like the budget we were discussing today and days before. This is the money that we own as a people, which should be distributed on the basis of balanced and proportionate development to each of the regions, so that the regions will have their share, the districts will have their share, and they will then, in planal treasury, will give you an equalization support. So in that sense, the villages will start eradicating the poverty of the people. That's what we are saying. We are saying we will not allow, you go to a particular village now, you will see an investor will come, sign a contract with the villages, and then transform their land into a banana plantation and use the same villagers to work on the banana plantation. When we have a national treasury that could have had a cooperative bank, that's what they're talking about. And that cooperative bank will give interest-free loans. And that cooperative bank can give that village all that it needs to have own that banana plantation and sell the banana and put it in strategic areas, in hotels, etc., fine. But when it comes to our land, we are saying that you either come and the owners will maintain owners as shareholders and you invest, or we use our cooperative bank to help those village farms as well as the household farms to be able to get the resources they need in order to improve farming. That's what the system what we were talking about. So that is easy to understand.
Yes, it is. So now we're going to go into this talk again of coalition. I saw a press conference that you did, and also the CA guys came out and they did a press conference, and they're actually kind of blaming you that they've tried you, even though, you know, people are like, but a coalition is not by force. You don't have to go if you don't want to, or you don't have to be a part of it if you don't want to. But they're saying, you know, you don't answer calls. They've tried. Dominic has been to your house. He had a chat with your wife. You know, he was there. You did not even return their call. And now they're blaming you for not being part of the coalition.
You see, we must respect people, and I must respect them for trying to reach out to me in the first place. I think it will be a matter of arrogance to try to blame people in any way. So clearly, let me accept that yes, what they are saying, I will not try to disagree with. But let's look at it objectively.
So it's true that you did not
return calls. I'm coming. I'm saying let's try to look at it objectively.
Okay.
I think it will be humanly impossible, you know, to have somebody approach you. The unfortunate thing, nothing is being said, the purpose of approaching me. So if they said why they approached me.
It was about the coalition.
Yes, but what type of coalition?
For all the parties to come together and form a coalition.
So you see, nothing is clear to you at the moment. So you still need to do more investigation and interrogate Dominic. When they sent people to me, what did they tell me? Has he said that?
He said it's about forming a coalition.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that's misleading.
So you're saying that the people that they sent, they should have outlined exactly what they want.
I'm saying they have in fact outlined that, but he will not say it.
Yeah. But they said first time, you said you have to make it formal, write to us.
So you see,
they did.
This is what I'm trying to say, that yes. This is where, if we continue this type of trend, people who should be seeking the mandate of the people would engage in wranglings as to what did this person say and what did that person say. I am saying that does not help them, that does not help us. Yeah. I believe we are mature people and we are all sovereign. Each party is sovereign. And each party should seek the mandate of the people. There's nothing wrong with that. So if we decide that we should really talk about coming together, then of course that should be characterized by respect. It should be characterized by confidentiality. It should be characterized by integrity. And that is why we did not say anything to anybody. We have not said anything in public until we saw a press release. And now that this type of discussion is taking place, really, Fatu, do you think that I should continue to discuss for the sake of saying nothing? I want to achieve something, and two things. One, to achieve bringing people together to form a coalition. But two, even if we cannot come together, well, let's build the integrity of the opposition so that the people will say, yes, they are not together, but we will make this opposition party.
But don't you think if you had gone and sat down with them, you would know more?
Well, again, that's what I'm saying, that, you know, it's like you are speculating a lot.
Yeah,
based on the information. Yeah, that's
yes,
what I'm saying.
Yes,
you need to go back to them to clear the information. One, to find out who spoke to me, who they sent to me, and then go to. Well, you know, that's what he said.
Yes.
And I don't want to dispute that because it's him talking and my response. It's good to go to him and said, who actually went to Halifa physically and spoke to him? The physical person who spoke to this man. I will not reveal that.
Yes.
You were saying it's Dominic, but go and talk to him so that you can get the fact.
Yes.
Now,
But somebody came to you and spoke to you.
Of course, somebody spoke to me.
Okay.
And I will not say it's Dominic, it's not Dominic. I'm saying that really, maybe, you know, when such conversations develop, people get destabilized, you know, you go into a defensive mood of all sorts, and we must prevent that. We do not want leaders to be defensive about something that is not necessary for them to be defensive about. Coalition is not a force. Who am I? And who are they? We all have our parties and each sovereign. Let's face the Gambian people and try to seek their mandate. But if we believe that coming together will build our strength, we may choose to come together. We are still open to people approaching us.
Are you open to coalition?
Of course, we are talking to people, and we have spoken to many people. Coalition building is an everyday exercise for all political parties because you would want a support base to be able to win an election. So there is absolutely no doubt that something had gone wrong. And what is important is for all of us to start from good faith. When you have good faith, you know that a person does not have intention to really bring somebody down. Nobody who is decent, a decent human being, will not really try in any way to just simply, you know, do things to infuriate people. So I cannot understand that type of thinking, because that's not my thinking anyway. I have high respect for Dominic.
Yes,
I have high respect for Dabo. I have high respect for all political leaders, and they know that. I stood by many political leaders at a time when they had their own struggles. So in actual fact, how can I also want to harm them when I even put my life to struggle for them? So in short, I believe that as experience develop among all of us, then such situations will not arise in the first place.
Okay. I know the presidential candidate of CA, Dr. Ismail Cisse, went after you on Twitter and also on Facebook, that before you change, you have to change your system first before you change your system. So he believes that your system inside PDOIS, you cannot even change that before you talk about another system change. He actually did not mention name, and I saw a lot of people on social media saying, but mention who you're talking about. But we all know he was talking about you. How do you feel about stuff like that when those happen on social media?
Well, you know, one has to be very mature and not allow yourself to get to certain levels, empty chatter. When you analyze something, you analyze the concrete thing. All of you saw DOI at a more transparent party in the country. That's what I had anyway. Maybe that's an exaggeration. But our Congress was held in public. And the most open-minded, most dynamic, I hate to say it, I hope they will forget, who usually claim to be DOI members and DOI supporters. They are not ordinary people. They are not that they value. And I believe that, well, we do not run such a party. The party we run is a party of interest. So I don't know what is meant by change before you can change something. Maybe they can elaborate. I would not even want to take ownership of those comments.
To be fair to you on PDOIS,
in your country.
So then you should have made that system change at that time then.
Well, don't you think that Dominic, on the 20th, had the intention of removing Jammeh by force?
It must have been tough.
So essentially, that mindset that no dictator can ever was not an ordinary issue. So therefore, many Gambians can say whatever they want to say, you know, to allow me to take charge and do what was supposed to be done to ensure that.
Thing about, somebody told me before, we were in a conversation and She said Halifa is someone who can big things, big cars. What impresses Halifa?
Well, all my life
Yes.
in the United States and everywhere in the world, and I was touched. And I made it my commitment, and I will die on the basis of that. That is what motivates me. My motivation is day and night to see the suffering. That's why I'm in it. Nobody created for me, nobody forced me. It is internally built that I have a sense of responsibility that my purpose for living is to eradicate. I will die trying.
Well, I was talking to Syria one time and I said, if PDOIS, if Halifa becomes president and the Gambia, it must be maybe really hard for people because they may not want to spend anything.
Land before they discovered oil and before they created sovereign national wealth. Look at Kuwait today. Singapore was very poor, but with sovereign national wealth, look at to have good houses, have good clothes, eat good food, have a beautiful
Priority. Most of the time, the people that are there, it's about them more for them than the people.
Well, I think this is where the opposite is the case. Not to want what you should give the people so that they can live decent lives. You must be able to be the type of human being who would not pursue precisely what you're saying, so that the resource we are saying at the central bank today, look at our ocean. You have the Navy. They are securing our waters. Could you not also give fishing trawlers to the Navy so that they can engage in industrial fishing? Generate sovereign national wealth. Look at Batakunkusanyang Katong. How many years they have been mining 100% shares and maybe 10, 15% shares to a private company so that it can be private public. With those shares, these are young people coming from GTTI, you want milling machine, well, the cooperative bank will give you milling machine to go and work, etc. So we are saying that people will have the capacity to be able to live better lives. Not only that, we are saying part of that sovereign wealth can be transformed into have a media house, and you want to build it into an established media house, you can be given the loan that is necessary so that established industries by Gambians, and all they need is to enhance their capacity. So if those people earn their profits and want to buy their beautiful cars, what business is there? It does not belong in modern society. In modern society, once you are seeking the mandate of the people, I remember some say, well, what type of human beings are these? And these are people who are intellectuals. They know that you are taking power under a constitution. When you take over power, willy-nilly, you can just wipe out everything overnight. It's like magic. And these are like thinkers. Yeah.
Yes, and a Gambian in the diaspora sent this question. She said, Honorable Sallah, you are highly competent and most Gambians would agree you're also a talented leader. However, governing with potential coalition partners could create divergent views on the role of government in controlling or running. What would such a compromise look like?
What will be the divergence? Because any economy now in the world must have a public sector, private sector, cooperative sector, if you wish, and you should be able to have GAIPA assisting those people to know where they can invest in order to constitutional reform. We are talking about the public service becoming more efficient. We are talking about health being accessible to the base, to be able to provide the better life.
The financial data transparency system that they are working on, PDOIS or yourself on this issue, will you support such a thing?
That really, you must have accountability in angles. Number one, you must create the structures of the state that will ensure that accountability takes place. Defense of this coming Sunday, and we will invite aspects of our national life. A regulatory authority for health, so institution to see that what is allocated is actually getting to the people. We are saying we will involve the people in governance. If we say in this village, this is the equal, and they will take part in selecting those people who are supposed to implement the project. So we believe that in all aspects of society, and they will take part in being the whistleblowers of the resource base.
Well, just to remind our viewers that you're watching this interview here with us on the phone. We are trying to make sure that this does not happen. Who is in the diaspora who sent that question, we would like to say thank you very much. Almost about to end this interview because it's been over an hour already, and the plan was to have this for in some parts of Europe right now. So before we go, I would want to ask Honorable Halifa Sallah about the PDOIS policy. If, for instance, you're talking to the voters right now, of course, there are a lot of people watching, and how can you convince them to vote for low cost?
So, essentially,
maybe Tough Africa Global?
Well, it's housing, but we're talking about for the working population, for the farmers, in the use and payback, exactly just like Osusu, what they have been given. So the state will function like an Osusu, just like the women function like an Osusu, which means that we are all putting our money there. You'll have a low-cost housing scheme for the rural areas, and therefore their living condition that now exists in this Hudson housing scheme that will look at the whole of Banjul, visit those people in their homes, and then valuing based on their own ownership of the compound and the sharing of the compound's costs. So institution says that education at the basic level should be free, compulsory, and accessible. So if the Constitution says that, and the Constitution was promulgated since 1997, it means that 1998 you should have lower cost in terms of, you know what is happening. Look at Gambia College now. Even to be a teacher, you have to pay 10,000 above for some of the students. We are saying those are the things that will be completely eradicated in order to ensure that we move gradually towards free education at the highest level. Of testing at the village level. But a village health system should be operative in such a way that you train the villages. We want to transform the villages into a prototype applicated at the village level. And the villagers will be trained so that they'll be able to run those miniature services at the village level and expand to the national level. So there is absolutely no doubt that DOI has answers to the problems of the country.
The TRRC report was submitted. I don't know, what is your take on that?
Well, you know, I have to be very fair in essence. We cannot dispute that, and that that should not be unreasonably denied. So the rest is a matter of opinion, and those opinions will reflect in an electoral process. So certain things will run against you in terms, and the rule is applicable to me as anybody else. Person sees that the time is indeed against the
in the Gambia right now. Many a times I would say, at least we may not have a perfect democracy, but we have some kind of democracy. What do you think about the situation in the country right now? Do you think it's getting better or it's getting worse? Because a lot of times people, do you feel like that sometimes?
Well, I think we should really put everything in perspective. President for is to change that system and open up the Gambia. And he is in control of an army, he is in control of his commander-in-chief. One thing he can do is for the country, because many people will begin to criticize that, oppose that, and of course that can lead to all sorts of things. And we all struggle for him to be where he is, and therefore recognize that the fundamental will be closed, and then I move to another. So it is during the impasse that the media became, the radio station, state radio was not open, state media was not open to the coalition. So it was the, that's why I have great respect for him, and everything should be done so that he'll be well established. So, so in time showcase what we were doing. So in short, I must say that what we have inherited, we have changed, and attribute that to the government of the day. I will attribute it to the Gambian people,
yes.
With the government included, that all of us have actually contributed to that.
Definitely.
And that's what we...
I have a whole lot of questions that I wanted to ask, but internet is not being nice to us. It does happen when we're doing a live program. This is why I'm thinking now, instead of doing a Facebook Live, we would rather record President Barrow to do. I'm coming back to coalition again, because Gambians are so, we all think that that's the only thing that works. Because of what we saw in 2016, politicians have been going it all by themselves, and it never worked. And we had a coalition, it worked. So if President Barrow's party, NPP,
are there,
yes,
to build the coalition and to effect the change, and people constantly ask, why didn't you accept a ministerial post or this? So I asked, what post would you have given me if you were to give me a post? Barrow, I was here during the impasse, so make me vice president.
Oh, yes.
And then we'll start struggling. The role I played as a spokesperson required that I had no ambition, so that we were able to work together, that he saw nothing but somebody who put conscience and national interest to the fore in order to work with me so that we can achieve the goals that were set for us, that is to effect the change, and it was left for him to use his conscience in order to see what to do to run a country. So at this moment, he has done so for 5 years, them that we wish to be associated with, and therefore the Gambian people should give us a chance to...
It's going to be a two-horse race that is going to be between the UDP and the NPP. How do you feel about that? Because
APR coalition will not be formed. Coalitions can be formed in different ways. It's to go, and it goes. We have seen that. We have seen musicians in certain countries rising up without political parties, and eventually we will not be deviated from maintaining our bearing that, for me, aids. And therefore, I cannot turn in any other direction but to work towards that direction. And as you said, it will be more difficult. But we hope that others will join so that we can change the system.
Okay. Well, definitely, it's about 10:52 now. We saw when I see you talking to me and your comportment and everything. And then out there, who people, and then this is Halifa, he's not who they say he is. How do you do that? So do you sit down sometimes and feel like you should go out there and say, I am not who you think I am?
Well, that is really... because I know that I'm who I am, and therefore nobody
can... That matters.
Yeah, that matters. But what I stand for, I don't want it to be distorted. Just like people who wanted to say that, well, we were in talks, that will end up in failure. So you must prepare for coalition talks, which means that you must talk to the individuals who you are drawing into a coalition as a consultation first, and then see that there are like minds, then you move into coalition talks. We started a process in coalition 2016 with discussion with the presidential candidates.
Yes.
Eventually some said, well, we don't want to participate, and they left. That's how you move in coalition. That's what coalition talks are all about. So in actual fact, when we felt that we needed to make some clarification, we have. Of course, yeah, but in some instances they will say, well, he is open.
Yeah, the time there'll be no interruptions due to internet. I see what we need to do to get this system corrected, but I guess is the internet. Just like I said, this interview is for an hour, and now we'll be having different interviews with you. But if the network continues to break, what we would do is to record the interviews and then air them for you, because at that time, and also to the fans of PDOIS who are watching this interview right now, what would you like to tell them?
The Gambia has a future, but that future, young people come out of our school system every 12 years. What do we have for them? The emphasis is that yes, the parents of the child has responsibility to take care of its children, and that responsibility is to educate them. Do that, then we are mortgaging the future of this country. We have sovereign national wealth. So we have all these countries in the world where poverty started, but I believe that as a people, we must unite to know that each person has one vote, and each person is a sovereign citizen. If you really refuse to be part of the Gambian nation and become a citizen, compared to the citizenry at Gambia, and know that the hospitals, the schools, the roads, then it will be in our own hands.
On the 30th nomination, are you looking at taking a big crowd?
Well, they have their unique and new, and that will enable us to achieve our. Yes, I'm expecting a big crowd, but we may also be using different tactics of how to mobilize that crowd and get them involved in our nomination process.
Well, thank you. But the interview would stay on the page, and right after it is aired, you can watch. We'll try to bring these interviews earlier next time. Thank you very much for your time, for those of you who are watching. And we'll try to have another interview with Honorable Halifa Sallah by the time that the election with some of the parties, not all the parties, of course, because we can't do 25, but we're trying to do, the main ones. But thank you. I'm not saying you're not important. All of you are important. Very much for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
mbokk yi xibaar jógati ci election house bu ko defee mu dem bindu pour doon seen presidential candidate 2021 ñu ne nag honorable Halifa Sallah taxawan ndóol Gambia boo xam ne dañ fi daaxali nga xam ne mooy jaayante doole ci biir honorable Halifa Sallah